Prepare to be astounded and amazed. These are the mystical incantations of a stage illusionist, presented to audiences seeking to witness the miraculous wonders of magic. And in stage illusion, this step is necessary because it invites the viewers to suspend disbelief, refrain from strict scrutiny, and to simply accept on sight that which is presented in a theatrical performance for sole purposes of entertainment. The magician, with these polite words, simply asks his audience to pay no attention to the man behind the curtain and to just sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. But some people, generally not well educated or sophisticated, still want to believe in magic for one reason or another. Perhaps magic gives them hope or feelings of empowerment and efficacy. But for those of us who profess science, of course, this is quite a different matter, and you look like an intelligent person. Do you believe that there is life somewhere else in the universe? Probably most reasonable persons would have to concede, just considering the sheer vastness of the cosmos by function of the law of large numbers. If there is life on one planet, the probability that at least one other planet replicating these results is pretty high. And extrapolating from empirical observations on Earth, one could reasonably calculate that if that contingency were to manifest at some other location in the universe, by function of science, the conditions that applied on Earth would, all things being equal, apply there as well, in science. And on Earth, all scientists are well aware that there are two basic variables to consider as a preliminary consideration, namely the sun, where the core burns at 27 million degrees and about 10 million degrees on its surface, simply too hot for any life to exist. And the orbiting planet of the Earth, a 6.6 sextillion ton mass with a 25,000 mile circumference, placing it approximately 91.5 to 94.5 million miles away. And scientists have determined that the light from that perihelion we call the sun, a 2.3 trillion square mile glowing mass, must travel 8 minutes and 20 seconds to arrive here. And this rather precise location for orbit would make life simply uninhabitable if it were off by only 1.5 million kilometers, or 4 times the distance between the Earth and the Moon. So just 100 million miles closer or further away, life as we know it simply could not exist. Impossible. Wondrous, even if not miraculous, a similar discovery in February under the polar ice caps of Antarctica. By simple serendipity of location, scientists accidentally found on Earth a new form of life where none believed it might exist. When their oceanic probe, deep inside the waters that we know to be necessary for life, and that factor which we look for in the cosmos for other life, first landed in the wrong location, and then stumbled upon an ice shelf formation where a wholly undiscovered form of sponges and barnacles were present. And those research scientists posit that but not for the placement of that ice shelf, creating a natural obstacle in that sub-oceanic space to present an opportunity for accumulation, these sponges and barnacles, simple life forms, have found sufficient sustainable resources to survive, defying all odds. But not for this accidental intervention by nature, the placement of a shelf under the ice caps. it is highly unlikely that that species would have survived. The laws of large numbers and probability dictates much of our understanding and expectations in science to explain natural phenomena. And viruses are the most abundant biological particles in the world of creation on Earth, granting them the greatest opportunity of all life forms to present a threat to mankind. But by some fortuitous circumstance, until a current pandemic pathogen, would you find it incredible to believe that there are only 220 total harmful viruses to mankind? Almost as if long before most people ever heard the term herd immunity, mankind had developed in nature a general herd immunity to a threat from all viruses of any type, regardless of kind, and no matter how many mutant variations that they might create, granted the optimal opportunity to drive mankind into total extinction. Until very recently, the law of large numbers would have dictated that coronaviruses, being the largest family of viruses and the largest size, which imports a self-destructive instability, might have posed the greatest threat to mankind, possessing the optimum conditions for mutant variants to develop. But surprisingly, defying all odds, coronaviruses were not discovered in animals until 1932, when polio was our greatest threat amongst viruses, and measles, and were not discovered in humans until 1965. Biological particles that were found to be only a small part of a cocktail mixture of pathogens giving rise to a respiratory tract infection symptoms within the less than deadly common cold. And intriguingly similar in form to chicken coronaviruses. And of this variety of what are described as common human coronaviruses, the CDC fact sheet lists only a total of 4, estimated to represent as much as only 30% of the common cold, but with no unique capability or gain of function to be anything other than a co-infecting agent, causing you to cough, sneeze, perhaps have a fever. In fact, the very first bat coronavirus did not arise in what scientists have described as a zoonotic evolution until 2003, with the emergence of the severe acute respiratory syndrome, or SARS virus, in Hong Kong. And by 2013, scientists in China had publicly acknowledged to have cultivated in vitro a genome similar to SARS from a bat coronavirus found in Yunnan, the only successful in vitro culture known to mankind in the open source. A response, they say, to the emergence of SARS and MERS, and research performed, ironically, by the Wuhan Institute of Virology. So prepare to be astounded and amazed. Not just a virus, the most abundant biological particle in the world, but a coronavirus, the most advantaged class of viruses for the purposes of posing a threat to mankind, has not only zoonotically evolved from a bat coronavirus, a threat that never occurred until 2003 in Hong Kong, but arose in Wuhan, the very location where the first bat coronavirus has ever been cultured in vitro. But according to all news reports and scientists, this pandemic pathogen was zoonotically evolved, and you look like an intelligent person. Mohammed Norman Oliver, the state health commissioner, declared COVID-19 a communicable disease of public health threat on February 7th, 2020, which he could not do constitutionally, even under what he described as extraordinary circumstances, because there were no cases of novel coronavirus in Virginia until 1 month later. And that is an abuse of discretion that not even one attorney in Virginia to date has noticed. By January 14, 2020, one day before the first infected person arrived in Seattle, the World Health Organization had made the preliminary conclusion that if there was any evidence at all that COVID-19 was being transmitted from person to person, it was between family members who had been residing in restricted areas for extended periods. And by February 24th, they had concluded that it was their opinion that families had driven infections in China because they had been confined under lockdown orders in China for extended periods. But it was also their conclusion, after review of over 55,000 laboratory-confirmed cases and their tracer contacts, that COVID-19 was not a communicable disease because they could not validate a secondary attack rate of even 5%, 4 times too low in statistical significance to merit a finding of an infectious disease being transmitted from person to person. And no credible large sample size tracer contact study since has altered that empirical determination. And that means that COVID-19 can only be deployed as a biological weapon of terror. But Governor Northam, as well as the Republicans seeking nomination for governor, have been totally silent about this empirical fact established and supported by science. And so here is the truth. My name is Major Mike Webb. And by God, I am running for governor of Virginia. I ask every Virginian and every American true to, like the motto of the infantry, follow me, and we shall overcome. Honest. And y'all go back now. Here. This advertisement was authorized by Mike Webb. And y'all go back now. Here.